So I left off right in the middle of this first trial segment of case 3, I guess, but it's the second case that actually has trials as we would expect them to have. Um, we're right in the middle of one of these things. So this pattern that Ace Attorney, I was about to say Phoenix Wright. Phoenix Wright's not in this game except being written on the coach. Ace Attorney does is throughout a case, several times, the judge will be about to pronounce a guilty verdict. And something will happen, some sort of machina, that will give the defense something to bring up at the last minute. And the judge will be like, oh, we're bringing this up at the last minute, I'm about to give my verdict, so this better matter. And then it turns out it always matters. And it continues. However, eventually the judge will be about to hand down a not guilty verdict. And when this happens, I don't recall any instances in which this has ever been interrupted. He's about to hit, announce not guilty, and it just goes. There's never like a machina for the prosecution. It would be a good way to mix stuff up if that happened, like, he's about to pronounce a not guilty relatively soon in the case, and then something happens that allows the prosecution to interject with something important. But that never happens for some reason. And oftentimes, this episode of the judge is like, well, I'm about to give my verdict then. You as the player might see something that you could take advantage of, some contradiction or something. But it doesn't let you present that because that's not part of the timeline. So you know what your path forward is, or you know what to do, but you can't do it. And you have to sit through this dialogue of this artificially created suspense. So, like in this case, in this instance, for example, there we have these three witnesses. Two of the witnesses says they looked down. They gave a testimony that has the strong implication. They looked down through the skylight at the top of the coach, and then they saw two people sitting in there. One person just, while they were both sitting, just reached over and stabbed the other person in the stomach, and that was it. And then they screamed because that's what they saw. There was no warning before that. They just happened to look down, and when they looked down, they saw, boom, stab. The victim was sitting in the chair, and after the stabbing, he remained sitting in the chair. Or sitting, whatever the seat is called in these, like, stagecoach-like things. The driver says he heard something, stopped the coach, then turned around and saw, after hearing something that prompted him to stop the coach, and he saw the perpetrator stab the victim in the stomach while the victim was laying on his back on the floor of the coach. And this seems to contradict the other two testimonies. But I can't, like, point that contradiction out without going through... Probably we're never going to, because the way Ace Attorney works is you tend to have clear, like, evidence to present that contradicts something. And usually that's in a really weird, remote way. We don't have any evidence on that right now, so it's probably not how it's going to keep going. But you see that, and then you can't really act on it. And instead you go through this rigmarole of the trial being about to end, but then you have this way out that just kind of shows up out of absolute nowhere. Before you can actually, it's like, I know that the trial's not going to end. So why are you bothering? Padding out the runtime of this game with this extra dialogue. You also learn that McGilded is doing what we would call devouring widows' houses. So we're defending a widow house devourer, supposedly. But very rarely in Phoenix Wright or other Ace Attorney games does the person you are defending actually do it. I mean, the whole point is you're supposed to believe in your client, which I don't necessarily agree with if you were trying to be a real lawyer, but whatever. That's not necessarily how that works. And so, in order to be consistent with that theme, they make it so the client is almost always innocent, and you are showing that. There has been a couple times where the client really has been guilty of something. And those cases, I believe, aren't very popular with the fandom. It's not, like, completely impossible, but it's very unlikely, especially on the second case. And extremely even more unlikely when it comes to the murder. Because one of those two examples I can think of of the person, like of the accused actually having done it. They did. It wasn't actually. It was one of the rare times where it wasn't a murder. But the whole case involved a murder, so it had to continue on and become a murder eventually. Like, all these are about murders eventually. Even if the first trial in the case is about a different crime, it's not a murder, it eventually turns into a murder. And that person turned out to be not guilty of the murder. And then, in showing that they were not guilty of the murder, we show that the Phoenix Wright shows that his previous arguments that he makes to show that he is not guilty of the theft were wrong. But because of double jeopardy, which apparently exists in Japanifornia, he got let off the hook for both of them. So Phoenix Wright essentially defended somebody who was guilty. That actually happened. Anyway, so the game also seems to have this weird comical agenda where it tries to make an idiot out of the concept of a jury, or make an idiot out of the jury. And I don't know how to feel about that. Of course, there's this weird mechanic where the jury can, like, declare a verdict, like, pass out a decision before the trial's over, and before all the evidence has been presented, which is kind of ridiculous. They also seem to be, this is kind of a low intellect thing, a bit of reminds me of the Mono Cubs. They're like the way they're positioned on the screen relative to the judge, and the way they kind of do something one by one, and the way they're all idiots. Anyway. The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord.
Objection!
London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried.
Objection!
But it's our right. It's our right. I believe it could prove vital in this trial. The defense's petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with the summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? Well, I'm not. There was no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so... Our members of the jury will be asked to explain what grounds they have reached their decision. On what grounds? You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty. Well, my lord, you're rather putting us on the spot. This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before. I don't really hold all this justifying luck. That seems to have thrown the jurors off. Wait, you have to have a reason to say why you decided on a certain verdict? What? Well, I just thought I could just pick whatever I wanted. Because whatever I felt like. Seems none of them have experienced this before. Alright then, this summation examination. I mean, how many juries would you be on realistically in your life? Maybe in London, maybe more than I would, for example. To me, it's like United States, you usually only end up about 2 in your lifetime. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, the judge knows about it. Well, maybe, just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for. That's what my kind of character does. That's what we're all about. To turn this trial around. So cheesy. So be it then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant, Magnus McGilded, guilty of this most serious crime. His name's Magnus. He must be very strong. Except he's not. The jurors' contentions. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. Well, as far as we know so far, that is true, yes. I trust the driver. He has excellent memory, it seems. Not to me. Full but I don't think we have, like, evidence to present on this, so... We don't have, like, evidence that he forgot something. 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. I forgot what this guy's occupation is. He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. I have simply typed and collated all of the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion. How does typing... it's always like the paradox of lectures where if you try to write down what the professor is saying, you are less likely to remember it. Sometimes. But then you can read it later. I know what, never mind. That's debatable. I'm not exactly sure. Because sometimes when you write it down, you think about, like, something you didn't think about otherwise, and then because you thought about it, that puts a context to the information in your mind, which makes it easier to remember. So maybe I'm wrong. You can trust the guild. Fair fares are our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years. Well, in order for there to be more people on the coach would mean that the price would have to have decreased. The scoundrel stabbed that poor man on the floor. It beggars belief. I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they? Well, let's see what we can do. We'll need to get these 6 people to change their minds. Okay, I gotta review this, because it's been 4 days since I've done this before. That's gonna be useless. Report prepared by the Scotland Yard coroner. It gives the cause of death as internal hemorrhaging, as a result of a single stab wound to the abdomen. Okay? Nothing particularly interesting about... That's what the jurors believe too, right? That he was stabbed in the abdomen. With a knife. So, maybe the time, 10 p.m. to 11 p.m., may matter if someone contradicts that. I didn't hear anything contradicting that in the juror statements, though. He is not shown to not be on the floor. Now, something about this is Magnus said that he tried to help him afterwards. That's why there was blood on his gloves. So, he might have propped him back up on the seat. That could explain it, but I tend to, like, induce if this is supposed to be a photograph at the crime scene, the victim is not on the floor, then the victim wasn't stabbed on the floor. And we have the gloves, which, they're just gloves with blood on them. They aren't something you would think a rich man would wear, but whatever. The bus has 8 seats, but there were only 4 of them being used. Wait a second. Huh? The prices are wrong. So 20 pence, but 4 pence per person, that would be 5 people. That's probably what we're going to end up dealing with is the prices. Okay, here's the knife. And then the ledger. This portfolio must contain all sorts of secrets of London's gentry. Oh dear, do you really think we ought to look inside? Well, it's not as though we know any of London's gentry personally, is it? Apart from our great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder. I assure you, we will not find Mr. Sholm's name inside. Well, let's see what we find. Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? Well, I suppose they're probably not all gentlemen at all, are they? After all, not everyone in this courtroom in this country is well off. Oh, goodness. What is it? Look at this. Do you see the name here? Bruce Fairplay. Should that mean something to me? It does sound strangely familiar, actually. Bruce Fairplay, the witness testifying at this very moment. Oh yes, of course, the banker. Why is his name in here? Ah, he borrowed 20 Guinness, did he? And look, the repayment date is fast approaching. It's possible that this is just a coincidence, of course, but this could be very useful information. Ooh. That was useful. I have to throw everything I can at them, and use some very persuasive language. Well, we haven't unlocked the launch ability yet, so sorry. Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works. Oh, I thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about the defendant. Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything the defense says. But then, they've reached their conclusion by their own reasoning, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become. Then what on earth am I supposed to do? Oh dear, I'm just citing what I've read about British law, Mr. Naruhodo. Right, I'm sorry. Do you have any idea how to make this work, then? Well, from what I can understand, you present evidence. The key to this procedure is using the juror's own words to make your arguments. Oh yeah, we're gonna make the money not add up. Okay. Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a unified front, but the truth is, they are complete strangers who just happened to find themselves here in the courtroom together. Yeah, I've played games with, these kind of mechanics, where you try to, match up contradicting statements. And that's the way to break them down, you mean? Yes, exactly. You must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, we then contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against each other. I see. So it's contradictions in what the 2 or more jurors say that we're looking for, which there always will just happen to be every time we decide to call for a summation examination. In a way, then, this is similar to a regular cross-examination, except it's like your turn to die in style. Oh yes, I suppose you're right, or like the Absorb. If you're familiar with the game that has absorbs in it. Find contradictions in their statements, and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. No, that's not right. I have to pull this off. The game does not continue otherwise. Can we start proceeding, counsel? I would ask you to take the stance for this. I'm expecting clear and concise rebuttal. Yes, my lord. Okay. Okay, so press can get me maybe goofy dialogue, but well,
Objection!
those two statements clearly contradict each other. They do. Explain yourself, counsel. Me, oh dear, what have I said? I swear on Silver Blaze's name and main and name, I haven't the first idea what you're talking about. Oh, we're gonna do pacing. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question. And according to the coachman, Mr. Peppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right, I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. That it is a fair and convenient single price, just the way London's carriages should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, man, why? 4 passengers paying 4 pence each. If you do the multiplication, it would be 16 pence. Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are different. By 4 pence, in fact, or precisely one person's fare. One person's fare. Yes, in other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there was another passenger we've heard nothing about. Oh, gracious, except what the judge thinks has nothing to do with this, just the jurors. This can't be right. The coachmen of the guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword. The figures your coachman claims most certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy. I beg your pardon. Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus. This is such a stretch. Such a simple mistake. Alright then, how do I make it so that this miserable trial doesn't end, Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire into the innocent side of the set of scales. Now hold your horses there, coachman. We're all in agreement. Why do you have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo. This is so remote. This is all very irritating. Begging your pardon, sir, I'm going to do the same. For the love of Mike, not you as well. That's supposed to be Michael the Angel. A penny can be different between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards of financial matters. Oh, really? I, for one, think it's only proper that we hear from the witnesses again. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo, you did it. Don't you have to flip all of them, though? If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue. Oh, you only need 2 more, actually. There is something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions. Then that's where you must strike next. So you need to pit 2 more jurors against each other and show there's another contradiction in their assertions. Exactly. You can do it. Well, the scales of justice have shifted, but they still weigh heavily on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with your summation examination. I'm changing my leaning to innocent. I should like to hear what the slipshod bookkeeper has to say for himself. He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazened, I must say. Absolutely brazen. Okay. Good. Beppo, this trial has to continue so he can get to the bottom of this corruption. Not guilty, I say. That's the scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor. It beggars belief. So we just need to find two. Okay. We took the liberty of doing some research in case you happen to find yourself in such a situation. Shall I read to you what I found out? It's a little long, I'm afraid. Very well. Listen to this. During the summation examination, you will hear the assertions of the 6 members. Oh. Oh, Philly. Oh, why did I do this? I accidentally triggered a tutorial I don't need. Doesn't let you skip to the next line of text until the previous one finishes scrolling. Alright then. Okay, I think I... Because he's saying stab sideways, right? So... Sideways and on the floor don't agree with each other. Here's where we do it. Okay. These two statements are completely contradictory. What? Explain, counsel, post-haste. Oh, dearie me, I was only knitting a jumper for my other half. What is this claptrap? What does contradictory even mean, I ask you? We've heard from more than one witness that they all allegedly saw the actual moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3. What? Can't you see that I'm busy here? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it? Want to test me, do you? It was like this, stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up, just like the prim banker said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony, quite true. Now then, juror number 6. Oh, is that me, is it? What can I do for you, young man? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam? Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was like this. He stabbed the poor man after he collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so. Now, don't move. Take a look at these two jurors. He stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up, and he stabbed the poor man after he collapsed on the floor. Well, I never. They're stabbing in totally different directions. What? Bless my stitches. What a muddle. What this tells us is that there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses is telling the truth. Oh? But why? Why the dickens would they lie? I don't know yet. But what I do know is that if the trial ends at this point, we may never find out. We may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen in all good conscience? Why did you say, oh dearie me? I can't abide people telling lies. The scales. I don't believe it. Wait. Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him, in his black suit. He's clearly some devious Eastern Scosa using magic on us all. If I could use magic, do you really think I'd be putting myself through all this? Answer me this, dark jinx. Huh? Me? What exactly is the problem? What of it if two witnesses have slightly different recollections of events? What of it? Let's say the Shylock did stab the victim as he was sat next to him on the omnibus. And this young dandy saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor and then the Shylock stabbed him again. And this old lady saw him do it. Well, what do you say it didn't happen like that, What are you calling a dandy, sir? Why I should take this knife out to you. Who are you calling old? Why I should take this needle to you. They're ready to kill each other now. But could the foreman of the jury be right? Yes, the two witnesses see two different moments of the same crime. Yeah, of course. It's true. There is an outside chance of almost anything you care to mention. Exactly the point I've been trying to make. Before you go any further, Mr. Naruhodo. What is it, Mrs. Sato? I think you should have a look through the court record. Ah. You see, this evidence makes it quite clear. There isn't even an outside chance of what the juror is saying. How did I miss that? Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman. What is it, you dark jinx? Come on, out with it. What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. What are you talking about, man? How could you possibly say that? Do you realize that I'm only doing my job? As foreman of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So where's your evidence, man? That's what we want to see. I say the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime. If you say that's out of the question, show me some proof. Looks like the only way I'm going to convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Some irrefutable hard evidence. As you wish. What? I'll give you the proof. It's out of the question that two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime, as proven by. Okay. Single stab wound. Yeah, but he could reinsert the knife into the old stab wound, if he was really accurate. I think this is what they're going for, though.
Take that!
This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen only once. Only once? It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely one time. Which means that these two witnesses can't possibly have seen it happen two different times. I mean, you could stick the knife in the same slot for some... Well, I don't know why you would do that, though. Alright, I concede defeat. Wait, That means 4 jurors are now leaning to not guilty. We've done it, Mr. Naruhodo. We've won. Not yet. You just continued the trial. What are you playing at, you dandy fool? Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me. But we had a consensus. I said shut your trap. I know a liar when I see one. And if the chap ever dared to cross the threshold of my shop, I'll take this razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head. Please tell me he's a barber. Well, in a quite remarkable turn of events, the defense's summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jurors for me to educate. And the trial must continue. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places. And I call upon all of you to continue to pursue the truth. So, Lord Von Zeeks, continue to substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please. That was a long animation. Having savored the rich aroma of the carmine contents of this hallowed chalice, it may seem crass to crush it to dust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Lord Von Zeeks, that has nothing to do with the case. It's cold in here, is it just me? As your antiquated tome no doubt says, the prosecution may not speak during a summation examination. So I honored a deathly silence and listened to the charade. It seems I overestimated the intelligence of the jury. Well, no matter. There is nothing so hard to prove as a self-evident truth, it would seem. No, and why else would we grace the courtroom with our presence after all? Just get on with it. Unprotected spiels don't add credibility to you. So let us proceed to the next round of battle. Bring forth the witnesses once more. Witnesses, I trust you heard the summation examination we have just had to endure? Yes, sir, that I did, sir. Of course I heard it. Yes, sir, I heard it. You, sir, on the end, the coachman. I believe it's Beppo? Yes, sir, my lord, sir. If it transpires that in your previous testimony, you were attempting to veil the presence of a 5th passenger on your omnibus, you will be found guilty of perjury. You are advised to bear that in mind, sir. Oh mio Dio, Now then, witnesses, I hereby call you to testify before the court again. You will explain the various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense's summation examination. They carried 4 passengers that night, I swear it, but, well, I for one was told I had to pay 5 pence for the bus. He filled us on the fare, he did, and then I saw that blood-curdling sight as well. It's all too much. I tell you, I saw McGilden stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands. Yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. I think so, yes. That was lame. Counsel, make sense of this for me, please. The phantom fifth passenger conjured into existence by my learned Eastern friend never existed. The confusion has arisen from the coachman's sly little cosinage. Beppo, explain yourself. I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster. The guild's fare is 4 pence across the board, you know that. And am I to understand that you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare? It's cold, and the last run of the day is always half empty. You have been dishonest, coachman. Sorry. You're a disgrace, Beppo, a disgrace. And your selfish actions have brought dishonor on the entire guild. If I may, sir, I had to pay 10 pence for the bus just last week.
What?
4 passengers at 5 pence each is, yes, 20 pence. I've done the arithmetic 10 times already, but I just can't make the result come out differently. No, that figures. Well, it would appear that one of the aforementioned misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel of the defense, your cross-examination, if you please. We've already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. I see you intend to continue the parlor games. Absolutely!
Hold it!
So, there are only 4 passengers on your carriage, but you didn't charge them the standard 4 pence fare? Is that right?
Excuse me.
Mr. First! Oh, how can I help you, sir? That last statement, did it trouble you in some way? Not particularly, sir, no. I didn't hear the little speech bubble. Okay.
Hold it!
It's impossible to make the last run of the day pay. I was so cold, it was all I could do to stop myself passing out. I'm getting chilblains from listening to you. How does money make you warmer? It was terrible. I wanted to give myself a pat on the back for even keeping the bus running. Doesn't a dedicated coachman deserve extra penny per passenger? You're digging a deeper hole for yourself here. If only there had been a 5th passenger on the omnibus that night. Then we would have had another suspect.
Hold it!
Does that mean everyone on board that night paid 5 pence instead of 4? Well, I paid 5 pence too, sir. And I just told you that I did. A flat fare of 5 pence across the board. It's not something to be proud of. The so-called discrepancy you learned friend identified. My learned friend identified as was nothing of the sort. Much like the phantom killer you so desperately needed, it's gone, dead and buried. I'd have been happy if it had ever existed in the first place. He fiddled us on the fare, he did, and then, okay.
Hold it!
This blood-curdling sight, you mean the murder, I presume? Yes, sir. A loathsome sight, no one should have to witness the horror in the eyes of a man the moment his life is taken. Well, not exactly, sir. I mean, I didn't actually see the exact moment the gent was stabbed. Oh, gracious. Really? We have another witness who did, however. The banker has already testified to it. That's correct. But Mr. First didn't actually see the point at which the victim was killed. That may turn out to be very significant. I heard the banker gent next to me take a sharp intake of breath, see? That's when I looked through the glass. That's when I saw the horrible blade poking out of his belly, all covered in blood. Every time I see a knife now, I can't help screaming, even when I'm eating. I tell you, I saw Mr. Okay.
Hold it!
You saw the defendant, Mr. McGillis, stabbing the victim, Mr. Mason, who was sitting next to him. That's what I said, isn't it? It's bothering me before, but this was... For just a brief moment, he hesitated before answering the question. Anyway, there's only the two of them inside the carriage, wasn't there? There's been much talk of a fifth passenger, but as yet, zero evidence. Now what are we wasting all this time for, eh? It's black and white, the man's guilty. Wait, what is... Oh, what does this do? Oh. Something about Mr. Fairplay's testimony just jars with me. Wish I could work out what it was.
Hold it!
Earlier you testified you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Yes, that's right. You said that the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding the knife in an ice pick grip. I suppose I might have, you know, yes, put the cart before the horse, maybe. What's this? Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving the horses when I heard a scream from the seats on the roof rack. Oh, I expect that was me, sir. Then I turned around, yes, I saw it through the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor, and the knife was sticking up out of his midriff. That's right, yes, and the fellow holding the handle was the famous man, yes? So in short, you didn't see the moment when the victim was actually stabbed at all. I really thought that I did, but when I go over it again in my head, no, I suppose I didn't actually see the precise moment the stabbing.
Truth!
Okay.
Excuse me.
Doing some bar bending here. Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Now you listen to me. I know what you're thinking. He didn't really see the exact moment the fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that? Eh? Are you asking me or telling me? He's getting flustered. I might be able to extract some new information from him if I answer him cleverly. Could I have just happened to see the exact moment the crime was committed? Well, I suppose some days are like that. Sooner or later, you'll see something you wish you hadn't. If you always peeping through a skylight on the top of an omnibus. Peeping, I'm a respectable city banker, I'll have you know. And I know what I saw. I remember it as clear as Ballarat Day. It was a grim scene, I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Oh, excuse me if I was getting a little hot under the collar there, my lord. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I can do that alright. I'll tell you just how grim it was. Do you think I'd forget the sight of those blood-soaked hands after that butcher stabbed the man? Not long ago, this trial very nearly came to an end. Somehow, we've managed to keep our chances alive here. I can't waste this cross-examination, I have to use it to bring some new facts to light. If you're not careful when you press these witnesses. The danger in that the jury will end up believing something unhelpful as they did before. Maybe, but we can't let the fear of that happening stop us from uncovering important new information. Yes, you're right. I need to pay careful attention here. I don't want to miss even a flicker of a reaction among these witnesses. Remember, if you happen to spot one of the witnesses reacting in a strange way, don't hesitate to pursue them as to the reason. I only carried 4 passengers that night, okay?
Hold it!
Soaked. Ahem, well, perhaps soaked is laying it a little thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Oh, here we go. And you saw that from the roof, though through the skylight. Well, the skylight's reasonably large, so I had a pretty good view. And there was a lamp on inside the carriage as well, so I'm quite sure of what I saw. This banker's latest statement. I feel sure there's something not quite right about it. When you feel something doesn't add up, Mr. Naru, that's when you use the gameplay mechanics. Zal punishes me. Oh, I forgot. Okay, you can double tap to get through the text. Oh, I learned a new trick. Okay.
Objection!
Soaked hands? Well, I admit that soaked might be laying on a little too... Okay. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. What? Here are the gloves worn by the defendant, Mr. McGilded, on the night in question. Oh, yes, right. And there certainly does appear to be a sizable dark color stain there, but, as I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent. Yeah. But no, that can't be right. So you're the liar here, then. That's right, you were quite clear about it. You said it was both hands. Mr. Fairplay, if your last statement was a lie, it calls your entire testimony into question. You say you saw the moment the victim was stabbed. But is that really the truth? Well,
Objection!
it was a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yes, it wasn't both hands. It was only one. But the fact remains. The victim's blood was on the accused.
Objection!
No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated that he saw blood all over both hands. Which means there's a strong possibility that this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. Why? I'm a city banker, for pity's sake. My word should be the gold standard. I'm a gentleman, not some gutter snipe. Upstanding members of society don't prevaricate. He's claiming to have no reason to lie. But is that really the case? Mr. Naruhodo, if we had some evidence to explain why Mr. Fairplay might be lying, we could turn this tide in this trial completely. Do something very personal. Attack him in a very personal way. Well, here we go. Personal attacks time, my lord. Yes, counsel. The defense is ready to present evidence. By Jove, are you sure? Yes, evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had reason to lie in his testimony. Gah. Very well. I hereby call on the defense to present its evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owe money to Mr. McGilded. Yes, a list of innocent victims crippled by the accused's extortion. The point is, among the names of these debtors is your name, Mr. Bruce Fairplay. What? Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused? No, well, it's barely worthy of being called a debt. Then why do you have it? According to this ledger, you stole 20 Guinness, not an inconsiderable sum of money, wouldn't you say? You owe, not stole. Arg. Well, what of it? Let's assume Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. What would become of your debt in that case? These documents state that the loan agreement is forged between two individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, an outstanding debt which were owed to him would be annulled. They would cease to exist. Cease to exist? Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to have seen something you never in fact saw? In a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 Guinness to the defendant? It's quite broad. Order! 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 I'm pretty fresh into the recording here, so... Yes, Mr. Larg? Let me ask you again. And be aware that your answer may be most serious. May have most serious implications upon your future, sir. Did you, or did you not, see the precise moment in time in which the defendant is alleged to have thrust a knife into the victim? Silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony. Alright, now let's not make a melodrama out of this. Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch. A pinch? But it makes no difference. I definitely remember seeing blood on McGilded's hands, both of them.
Objection!
And yet only one of the defendant's gloves, which we have seen here as evidence, is stained. One may have only been wearing one glove. The other was just on the floor or something. So you keep saying. I wonder if I might be allowed to speak, sir. Go ahead, Mr. First. Well, the thing is, I think I remember seeing it myself as it happens. Seeing what? The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands. I think, yes. I'm almost sure that it was on both of his hands, not just one. What? Well, that's very simple. That means the assailant was not Mr. McGinnis. I mean, not... You know what I mean? Not McGilded. It would appear that we're going to need further testimony from all you witnesses. This time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Yars. Mr. Naruhodo, this is good news. The course of the trial seems to have shifted slightly, at least, at last. Yes. I might finally have a chance to turn things around here. There was blood on both hands of the assailant. I sincerely and distinctly remember that. However, I suppose you might say that I didn't see the exact moment the stabbing transpired, if that matters. I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both of the attacker's hands with blood on them. I didn't actually see anything myself, no, not until I heard that scream. Anyway, the fact remains, there can't have been anyone else inside the carriage, or we all would have seen. Well, lo and behold, in truth of fact, not one of you was witness to this crucial moment the crime was perpetrated. I apologize, my lord, but honestly, there was no one else inside the carriage, and the man's hands were covered in blood. That much incriminating evidence is tantamount to saying we saw the man do it. Yeah, but it wasn't his hands. That's really not what testimony is about. Let us examine the interior of the omnibus once more. The victim's fresh blood is clearly visible on the seat, corroborating the witness's accounts. In other words, there is no substantial nor significant change in the facts of the case. Very well, your cross-examination, please, counsel. Yes, my lord.
Hold it!
The evidence tells us otherwise. We have the gloves that the defendant was wearing on the night in question in the court record. I was well aware of that, sir, but nevertheless, I know what I saw, and I stand by it. The man has blood on both his hands. He's defiant, even in the face of hard evidence. Well, that's good. I don't know why we think this is a bad thing for the case. He's steadfastly refusing to admit that he might be mistaken about what he saw, but why? Your reasoning is dire. One hand or two, the salient point remains unchanged. Minutes after the crime, the grim crime, the victim's blood dripped guiltily from the accused fingers. However, I suppose you might say that I didn't see the exact moment the stabbing transpired, if that matters.
Hold it!
Don't try to downplay this. Whether or not you saw the exact moment of the crime is a matter of fundamental importance, as well you know. But, crying out loud, we all know that no one else could possibly have done it. I was just trying to save us all some time. You have a loan of 20 Guinness outstanding with the defendant, do you not? Had you hoped to release yourself from that financial burden by ensuring the defendant was found guilty? That's not entirely what I was hoping for. I just lost a little guinea, or 10, when I backed the wrong horse in the Derby, that's all. I was going to win it all back. There's a fixture this weekend, that's a sure thing. Ha, a little guinea or 10. I'm a banker, no one bats an eye if I borrow a little spending money for the weekend. I think you may have revealed rather more about your character than you bargained for, sir. This witness's scruples are not on trial here. Proceed to the next witness. Is that really how it's supposed to work? I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both the attacker's hands with blood on them, but she didn't see the knife in the hands, right? You definitely saw that too, blood on both hands. Yes, sir. I mean, I know what you're going to say. Only one of Mr. McGill's gloves has any signs of blood on it. That's right. The thing is, as far as I remember, sir, when I looked down and saw Mr. McGill sitting beside the other fellow, I don't believe he was wearing any gloves, sir. He wasn't wearing these gloves. That's correct, sir, and I saw the blood on both his bare hands quite clearly. It's true that the dark colored stain on the dark leather gloves wouldn't have been easy to see. I should point out that the police officer who apprehended the accused on the night in question reported that there was no trace of blood on Mr. McGill's gloved hands. There wasn't blood on his hands? This is puzzling indeed. This must be significant somehow, I'm sure of it. I didn't actually see anything myself, no, not until I heard that scream. You didn't see anything? Yes, sir, that is to say, no, sir, I didn't. Very sorry about what I said before, sir, very sorry, yes? It was very wrong of me to make up stories, and say I saw him stab the man. Would you agree, sir? I don't know what you're insinuating, but I certainly wasn't making up stories. Still, to say that you saw nothing isn't right either, is it? No, sir, nothing at all. Mr. Beppo, you were driving your horses. And at the very least, you must have enjoyed a good view of London streets, no? Please, you didn't even see that? It was so cold that night, you see, it was all I could do was keep from passing out, sir. Yes, my head was fairly frozen solid, sorry to say, sir. It would seem prudent to avoid traveling on the last omnibus service in London's cold winter nights. Beppo! Anyway, the fact remains, there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage or we all would have seen.
Hold it!
Everything you saw of the incident was through the skylight in the roof of the omnibus? That's right. It was fiercely cold that night, but the glass wasn't frosted over. Oh yes, I remember, I was shivering. It was so bitter. Which rather begs the question of why the pair of you were sitting on the roof deck in the first place. Well, I don't know about this young fellow, but I couldn't enter the cabin. Oh, why not? It was locked from the inside. I tried knocking, but no one opened the door. It was locked? That's right, and it's a public bus service, for pity's sake. That's not what I call fair play. Yes, I had exactly the same experience. I tried knocking, but the gent inside just gestured at me to clear off. So I had no choice but to climb up to the roof deck and look down longingly into the warm cabin below. Well, I can assure you I wasn't just looking down, I was glaring long and hard. And that's precisely why I can tell you with absolute confidence that if there was anyone else at all in that cabin, I would have noticed. Unequivocal, I would say. I'm not sure about these two witnesses. Could they really have seen everything inside the cabin through the skylight? Allow me to confirm one thing, Mr. Fairplay. You were riding this omnibus and witnessed the events in the cabin through the skylight in the floor of the upper deck, is that right? That's right, yes. In that case, there is a portion of the cabin interior that would have been out of sight from you. What? By golly, really? You're just ray tracing now. Obviously, at this stage, you can't say for sure. But the possibility cannot be denied that at the time of the incident, there could have been another passenger in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus.
Objection!
Enough hypothetical meandering, Ooh. I'm still scared of that word. The prosecution demands that you substantiate your claims. After all, the scene of the crime is here, in the flesh. Very well, I will uphold the prosecution's demand. You will identify the area of this cross-sectional plane of the omnibus. Where exactly in the omnibus are you suggesting that this potential extra passenger could have been situated? Well, I presume he was sitting here, right? So, if you trace this ray, it's going to go down here. So he could see here, but he couldn't see here.
Take that!
Both rows of seats on the roof face in the direction of travel, whereas the seats in the enclosed cabin face each other, which means the visible part of the cabin which passengers on the roof deck can see through the skylight, as I have drawn here. Happen to have a compass and a ruler on hand. That's right, my lord. As you can see, the seat opposite the one on which the victim and his attacker were sitting is obscured from view. In other words, if someone had been sitting on that seat, it's quite possible that these witnesses would have been completely unaware of it.
Objection!
It is quite possible some phantom was sitting there. You have a forbidding habit of obscuring the truth with ambiguity. I concur with the prosecution's rejoinder. In a British court of law, evidence is paramount. I cannot entertain this conjecture, counsel. That is, unless you are able to put a name to this mysterious passenger to whom you allude. Can you, Mr. Naruhodo? I honestly don't know. Who could it have been? Who could have been in the other seat, which is out of sight from the witnesses on the roof deck? I have an inkling. Sure, I don't know what it is, but I gotta do this myself. Do this whole bluffing thing myself. I understand, my lord. The defense would like to put forward a name. You are a fool. That response was a desperate attempt by a man who has no notion of his own limitations. A toast to hard lessons not yet learnt. Let us not delay, counsel. The defense is still to name the passenger in the other seat. This could be it. This could be the chance I've been waiting to turn the trial in my favor. On that night of the murder, the person occupying the seat in the omnibus cabin that was obscured from view was... Well, Susato wasn't even here, so unlikely. I would choose this, except I have no reason why we would think that he would be there. Like, why? I get it now, it's gilded. See, okay, so he haven't got to the prosecutor yet. That's for like the last trial, probably, if we actually accuse the prosecutor of something. This is the victim. This guy was on the roof. This guy is really suspicious, but we'd still think he was on the roof because this guy saw him on the roof, and this guy saw him on the roof. Right, so very likely he was actually on the roof. So it would be McGilded, who was on obscured from view, and the person who was in view was someone else besides McGilded that they mistook for McGilded. Seems simple.
Take that!
The passenger in the enclosed cabin that the witness on the roof deck failed to see has to have been Mr. Magnus McGilded. McGilded? It's like the blings increase in pitch. What are you talking about, counsel? That's the name of the defendant.
Objection!
If I desecrate this chamber by smashing my hallowed chalice, do forgive the discourtesy. There's a lot of spare chalices. Lord von Zeeks. People talk of those tiny island nations of the Far East as having a learning culture of their own. But I see they use the terms ill-advisedly. What are you trying to say? Let me explain in terms of that even a student of an artless backwater such as yourself might understand. When the bloody scene unfolded, the victim and his assailant were sitting side by side. Multiple witnesses have attested to the fact. It's the very premise on which this case is built. But that premise may be wrong. What? If the victim really was sitting beside Mr. McGilded, it creates an inconsistency that can't be reconciled in any way. What inconsistency, counsel? The defendant's gloves, my lord. Both witnesses made the same testimony. They claim that there was blood on both the hands of the person sitting next to the victim.
Objection!
Yet we know the truth to be otherwise. Only one glove bears the glory remains. The point is, even in the face of this irrefutable evidence, both witnesses have maintained their stance. Yes, their testimony remains unchanged. Exactly. They both adamantly swear that they clearly remember seeing blood on both hands of the assailant. In short, their memory of events is correct, and their testimony reveals the truth. It was somebody else sitting beside the victim that night, a third party we have yet to identify. And the victim's blood was on the passenger's hands, both of them.
Objection!
And who was this third party? I love how it got around naming the third party by naming the person on the other seat. Obviously the true culprit. Extraordinary. It's like we thought we were gonna name the culprit, but we just named, like, just the victim, defendant, and then, like... Okay. Oh no. What exactly are you postulating?
Objection!
The defense's postulation is just that. Nothing more than conjecture. Witnesses have clearly stated that they saw the accused. But when collaborating on his testimony, Mr. Fairplay said the two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. Yes, tops of their heads were obscured by the roof. I couldn't see the rest of them, no. I could see the rest of them, though. Yes, that's right. Both gents were most certainly hatted. Hatters do tend to notice such things, sir. And what peculiar styles of hat do the two gentlemen sport, Mr. First? Afraid I don't remember. You call yourself a hatter. Style of hat makes no difference. There was no third passenger in that cabin. Can you be sure? Because if there had been, he would have been charged a fare. The accused, Mr. McGilded, would undoubtedly have offered to depose the fact. Unless, that is, you are proposing an even more preposterous explanation. That the accused failed even to notice the presence of the true culprit in the very cabin in which he traveled. Ah. He's right. If there was another person traveling in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus, it's inconceivable that Mr. McGilded would have been unaware of it. And, there is clearly a simple solution to this problem. Bring the accused, Mr. McGilded, to the stand. Well, what say you, counsel? Prosecution objects, my lord. On what grounds? As a suspect, he will have already made a full statement to the police. What if there's some reason why he's unable to speak freely? Magnus McGilded is no uneducated ruffian. If it indeed turns out the man has been withholding information, you can be sure it will have been a most deliberate act. Oh yes. Counsel for the defense, what is your opinion? My lord, should we ask Mr. McGillett to testify or not? Yes. Grill him! Yes, we need to hear what he has to say in order to find out the truth. The defense would like to call Mr. McGilded to the stand. On that case, I would like to hear the opinion of the jury. Yes, I need a little time to consider this. If you ask me, I think we should hear from Mr. McGilded has to say. Get the man out here, I say. It would be utterly illogical not to hear his testimony. Then something needs doing. Get it done. That's how I run things at the guild. Hearing what the patron of my favorite little park has to say, oh yes, that would be lovely. Yes, the jury says the man must be heard. Very well, the court will hear the defendant's testimony. Bailiff, show the defendant to the stand at once. Let proceedings be resumed. Mr. McGilded, have you been listening to the discourse of the day? To be sure I have, my lord. There are now two matters of which the court desires to hear from you. The first is whether or not there was a third party with you in the omnibus cabin as proposed by the defense. The second is that if such a person were indeed present, why did you conceal that fact from the police? Egad, no, 'tis not in my nature to hide anything at all. Just answer the questions, please. The truth of the matter is, I've been desperate about this all along. Do I tell yous all? I'll keep my mouth shut. Tell us what, Mr. McGilded? The fine fella representing me is absolutely right. In the carriage on the night with myself and the other man, there was another passenger. It's true. Aye, and it was me who helped the little urchin get away after it all happened. You... what? No, Magnus McGilded, that convenient excuse can't save you now. I'm truly sorry, so I am, Lord Von Zeeks. I'm sure you'll be wanting to know why I said nothing when I was talking to by the police. I do be having a very good reason, I assure you. Which was? Well, the little child was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and not in any way involved, you see. What? If the police had known the wee one was there, they'd have assumed she'd done it. They'd have hauled her into your courtroom, just like myself. I was only trying to spare her that. Young hearts and young minds are easily damaged, my lord. And who was this young child from whom you speak? We would know. That I don't know. You don't know? Ah, well, the wee thing just happened to be in the carriage that night. I never saw her before or since.
Objection!
We have absolutely no reason to believe this man. The prosecution calls for the witness's statements to be disregarded by the court. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if the urchin isn't here in the courtroom as we speak, listening to the proceedings. Careful, Mr. Naruhodo. Recover your face. Bailiff, don't let the accused escape. Secure the omnibus. I call an emergency recess. Bailiff, ensure the defendant is in custody and clear the courtroom. We were hurriedly removed from the smoke-filled courtroom by the bailiff. Amid scenes of chaos as people stumbled over one another in their desperation to flee the chamber. We had no idea what was happening. All we knew was that for the time being at least, the trial was suspended. Okay. What just happened in there? Mr. Naruhodo, I've managed to find out what happened. Miss Susato. I was told it was an advanced form of smoke grenade, a type of exploding device that releases smoke. A smoke grenade? It sounds like the sort of thing ninjas use. They're just making sure everyone is safe now. Everything is safe now. I think the trial will start again before long. But who would have done something like that? The police managed to catch someone who was trying to flee the courtroom, apparently. Flee the courtroom? Why? Well, it's a young girl of around 15, I hear. A young girl? Then could it be the other passenger that Mr. McGilded was just talking about? My thoughts exactly. So he wasn't lying. Oh, let's become Mr. McGilded, actually. There are so many things I need to ask him about, but he's not here. I think he was summoned to the prosecutor's antechamber to answer questions, along with the young girl. Who is she, I wonder? And what was she even doing here at the trial? She was taking a huge risk, and for what possible benefit to herself? She might be not guilty of the murder either. There's another matter that's troubling me. What's that? The 20 pence. According to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 4 passengers that night at a fare of 5 pence each. That comes to a total of 20 pence exactly. But now it seems that there were in fact 5 passengers, which means the figures don't add up again. She's right. That's strange. Counsel for the defense, kindly proceed into the courtroom. Trial will recommence in 5 minutes. Oh, thank you, officer. We'll go in straight away. Well, whoever she is, I imagine this young girl will be asked to take the stand and testify now. I can't really imagine what she's going to say, but it could alter the whole direction of the trial. We'll know soon enough, Miss Susato. Yes. There's the young girl next to Mr. McGilded. Look. She must have been the one who caused the disturbance before. Well, after that rather eventful recess, the court will now resume the trial of Mr. Magnus McGilded. Now then, Lord Van Zieks. My lord, I believe you have established the cause of the smoke which veils proceedings earlier. It seems to have been an advanced form of smoke grenade, of the sort typically employed by the army. Good gracious, the army? What in the devil's name? It was an elaborate attempt by a young girl to cloak her escape from the public gallery, but she was caught. And now occupies the stand. Your name, girl? Are you responsible for the smoke grenade which induced such pandemonium here in my courtroom? What is the meaning of this deplorable behavior? Ahem, if I may, Miss My Lord. Yes, Mr. McGilded? I think perhaps I ought to explain here. Why is it that this wee lass was here in the first place, and why she tried to bolt like that? 'Tis all tied up with the events of that night, so it is. Mr. McGilded, give your testimony. You will explain to the court exactly how this young woman is involved in the case. It's what did happen that night. It's not like a defense lawyer needs that information or anything. On the night in question, I took the back seat in the omnibus and promptly nodded off. Then, begorra, a loud thud and a wee scream woke me up from a fair start. There was a fellow collapsed on the floor at my feet, so I sat him up on the seat across from me. Then I turned to find out where that scream had come from, and bless my soul, what did I find? There was a child in there, all curled up in a ball, hiding her wee self away. I remained somewhat baffled, I confess, but from what I gather on the night in question, the young girl was indeed riding in the omnibus, is that correct? 'Tis exactly as the defense counsel said. This last was the 5th passenger, my lord. Very well. The defense may now cross-examine the witness. Are you ready, counsel? Yes, my lord. Or rather, no. I have no idea where to start. I just hit the Q button. I know where to start.
Hold it!
And when you first got onto the omnibus, were there any other passengers already on board? There were not. The cabin was empty and there was no one on the roof deck either. You were the first passenger, as it were, I see. Ah, and that's why I took the back seat as I did. 'Tis the most comfortable, so it is. Could you explain exactly what you mean by the back seat? By all means, this is how you already described it earlier. I'm talking about the seat opposite the one in which the poor gentleman who was stabbed was sitting. Like I said, 'tis the most comfortable, and where I feel most at ease. And of course I enjoy gazing through the skylight from time to time as well. Then, begorra, a loud thud and a wee scream woke me up from a fair start.
Hold it!
A loud thud, you say, and a scream? Ah, that's right. How can I explain it? 'Twas like the sound of someone falling to the ground. That sort of noise. So you think it was the sound of Mr. Mason falling to the floor having been stabbed? Well now, you'll remember I was asleep at the time, so I wouldn't like to say. And when the sound woke me and I opened my eyes, there wasn't a soul to be seen in the carriage but the fellow on the floor. I mean, you didn't see anyone? But at the same moment you did hear a scream. Ah, from the seat above you on the roof deck, I presume. Not above me, no, my lord. 'Twas from inside the cabin. But I wasn't altogether thinking about the scream. No, I was too stunned by the desperate sight before my eyes. There was a fellow collapsed on the floor at my feet, so I sat him up on the seat across from me.
Hold it!
You sat him up? The victim, you mean? That I did, on the seat across from me, as I said. I could plainly see the poor devil was already gone. And you wouldn't leave a dead man just lying on the floor now, would you? Yes, I would, because it's a crime scene. Absolutely, I would not pick up a dead person and move the body. It's not common courtesy, so it is. No, just plot convenience. I find that a little hard to believe. Lord Van Zieks, now why would that be? You wake to find a man lying dead at your feet in a carriage. Any moral person would hail a cabman. Any upstanding member of London society, that is. Well now, as you know, I'm in something of a special line of business. The business of lending money at exorbitant rates of interest. Fortunately, my lord, not everyone is thankful for the help I offer them, and some would even see me dead. So I do try, where at all possible, to avoid getting myself in a tangle with trouble. Are you suggesting that you were just going to leave the man there? Heavens alive, no, I was always intended to report it, so I was. Only I had a mind to find out the whys and wherefores first. And the whys and wherefores? Right you are. There are some details I wanted to understand before anyone else got to meddling. That wee scream I heard, for example. Wouldn't your good self do just the same? Yes, the scream, he says, he heard at the same time as the thud of the victim collapsing. When I turned to find out where the scream had come from, okay.
Hold it!
Why am I reading that again? I'm afraid I don't understand. I'm sure you told the court that there was no one else in the carriage except yourself and the victim. So I did, sir, so I did. And as far as I can see, that is. What do you mean by that? Well, now, 'tis a queer thing. The wee scream I heard as I woke up. It came from, if you'll excuse the vulgar expression, under my backside. Good gracious. Under your backside? And when I lifted the seat on which I had been sitting, I found there was a wee cubbyhole there for storage. Mr. Naruhodo, we can examine the omnibus ourselves, remember? Yes, of course, the whole bus was submitted as evidence. This would be a very good time to have a thorough look around inside. And that was when I found her. There was a child in there, all curled up in a ball, hiding her wee self away.
Hold it!
You say she was hiding herself. Oh, that's right. It was hard to see in the dim lamplight, but she was all curled up in a wee ball when our eyes met. Well, my heart suddenly stopped beating in my chest. You're really overreacting to this. Still, all in all, I pulled her out from under there and sat her on the seat opposite so I could have a wee chinwag with her. The seat opposite? That's right, just next to the dead gentleman there. You sat this young girl next to a corpse, sir. Well, as I'm sure I mentioned, a gentleman in my position can all too often find himself in mortal danger. So, I needed to find out just who this urchin was, you see. And while I was in the middle of talking with her, I heard another scream, a fellow's voice this time. Presumably that screaming man was Mr. First, who was sitting on the roof deck seats. Right you are again, I would say, sir. Looking down through the skylight, he must have seen this young girl and the gentleman with the knife in his belly. In other words, the previous witness did not, in fact, see you at all, Mr. McGilded. But what they believed to be yourself and the victim was, in fact, this girl and the late Mr. Mason. My lord. It was, as I think everyone understands now, sat at the back of the carriage out of sight. It is certainly plausible. The defendant is somewhat diminutive in stature. And really readily confused, perhaps, with this young girl. After that, of course, with the scream of the gentleman over us, the driver realized something was wrong and pulled up the horses. Thank you, I've heard enough. The events are clear in my mind. However, at least one conundrum remains. Who's that girl? Her name is Gina Lestrade, my lord. She's a chancer, earns her crust among large crowds, relieving people of their purses. You said you didn't know who she was. That's commonly called a pickpocket. What? A girl here? A petty thief? Oh, Is this true, Miss Lestrade? Miss Lestrade, you will answer the question. How dare you? What is the meaning of this? Ah, the girl, she's gone. Open your eyes. Over here. Good gracious, how? What was the point in that little sidestep? I know not what you are thinking. I know not what you are thinking. Grown-ups are all the same. This dirty little dipper, you say, slipped up and got caught on the job. She got herself backed into a corner, so she knifed the gent. Go on. That's what's in your heads, ain't it? Not at all. We think you were underneath McGilded. And so, how could you stab him from there? Look, knives are for cowards. Only thugs use weapons like that. All I need for what I do is these fingers. I'm a professional, alright. Maybe not in your eyes, but I got pride in what I do. Let me guess, you don't count smoke guns among weapons for thugs? Oh, this? Yeah, this was in a bag I lifted the other day. Down where they keep the four-wheeled drags. Nice in it. I like the pink best. Do not wave that thing in my direction again. So, you admit that you were riding the omnibus on the night in question? If it's alright, lass, you can tell him the truth now. Alright, yeah, it's just like the Irishman said. The court accepts this girl, Miss Gina Lestrade, as a valid and significant witness in this case. Accordingly, young lady, we will now hear your testimony, if you please. You will tell the court exactly what happened in the omnibus on the night in question. Alright, if I have to. So, I snuck inside the carriage before they looked up the horses, just like always. But it was right old waste of time. I got nothing to show for me troubles that night. I tell you can't see a blind thing in that hiding place. It's pitch in there. Then after a while, I hear a loud bang. Nearly jumped out of my skin, I did. And the scream just came out. It's because of that, well, this well found me. It didn't help me get away, mind. Yes, he let you go. I fail to understand why you would let this street urchin go, Mr. McGilded. Oh, 'tis simplicity itself, my lord. You see, she couldn't possibly have killed the other passenger. I knew that for a fact. How? I'm sure I said before, sir. I was sitting right on top of the place where she was hiding herself. I think a demonstration is called for. This is where I was sat at that night. And the cubbyhole of which you have spoken is underneath the seat, I presume. There happens to be a handle for some reason. Yes, it does appear just large enough to accommodate someone of the girl's stature. But of course, the wee lass was stuck in there, because I had parked myself on the seat for the duration. Ah. So you see, that's why I let the lass bolt. I knew that if the police found her there, they'd automatically assume she'd done it. but I couldn't live with myself, for her young life was ruined when all the time I knew she was innocent. Even though you must have realized your action would result in your own innocence being called into question. Not at all, my lord, not at all. I knew in my own heart that I was innocent. So I thought it was worth taking a punt for my own good name for the sake of this less fortunate lass. My goodness. The perfect gentleman. My lord. This fine example of a man cannot possibly be guilty of a heinous crime like this. You guys are so fickle. I'm ashamed of myself for ever doubting you, sir. This is stupid. This calm, calculated reasoning one arrives clearly at the truth every time. Well, I can't in there either. Time for another summation. Saints alive. All 6 members of the jury consensual in their leaning to a verdict of not guilty? Shinara Hodo, this, well, it must mean what? That we're victorious. We've won? Are you sure?
Objection!
The sight of my iron-heeled Wellington of Finn's prey, do forgive the discourtesy. Is, like, in Arab nations, this really rude? Anyway. This really is a consummate example of the one monumental flaw in British judicial practices. There, where evidence and reasoning should be paramount, emotion rules the day. Emotion. The witness's latest statement gives us a clear insight into his true nature. What do you mean? Oh, we're gonna get a machina for the prosecutor, finally. Just when they say there never is one. What do you mean, his true nature? Do you really think Scotland Yard would have made such a glaring omission? After the incident, the omnibus was comprehensively searched by officers by the police. Obviously, the interior of this chubby hole, as the witness put it, was included in their investigation. The compartment under the posterior seat was full of the coachman's belongings. It's noted in black and white here in the police report. Good lord. The evidence has been tampered with. In order to corroborate Mr. McGillet's story, someone has unlawfully removed everything from under the seat. How could such a devious contrivance possibly have been effected, counsel? Naturally, we must acknowledge the deficiencies of the constabulary in allowing this to have happened. However, I assure you, when the omnibus was wheeled into the courtroom this morning, the compartment under the seat was not empty. Well, Mr. Yes, me? When the carriage was submitted as evidence, doubtless you examined it in fine detail, as would any self-respecting practitioner of the law. Pray, what did you find the condition of the underseat compartment to be? Oh, to be sure, the young gentleman will be able to clear this up in a jiffy. Sorry? Go ahead. You tell the court now, fella. Now, this is all an elaborate excuse by the desperate Lord Von Zeeks. Well, counsel, do you have something to say on this matter? Well, no, I did not expect the carriage. How am I supposed to answer? What can I say about the state of that little compartment under the seat in the omnibus? I didn't look. Sorry, I'm a failure. I didn't look. Why did I examine the omnibus more thoroughly? Perhaps I credit you with too much intelligence. It seems, my lord, that this Eastern initiate is as unreliable as the wine from the barrel. Mr. Naruhodo. Hehehehe. Well now, it would seem the argument is moot. And the truth of the matter is there for yous all to see after all. That their cubbyhole under the seat is as empty as the devil's heart, so it is. Why do I feel like something's not right here? I'd like the jury to weigh in on this matter, I think. That compartment is designed to house equipment used to maintain the smooth running of the carriage. The Guild's rules state the omnibus should be properly and fully equipped at all times. So it certainly wouldn't have been empty on the night in question. Beppo isn't that irresponsible. That money-lending fleecer and the pick purse are lying. I can't believe I was nearly taken in. The stinking rich are always stinkers, nothing but cowards, the lot of them. What? Oh no. It's a trick, of course it's a trick. Quite so, I must concur here. With calm, calculated reasoning, one arrives clearly at the truth every time. Which keeps switching back and forth, but every time a different truth, it seems. My lord, I humbly exhibit the scales of justice. Clearly, a verdict of not guilty at this time would be wholly inappropriate. Hey, finally a new kind of twist on things. Okay, thank you, counsel. But before we proceed any further, there is the matter of the outstanding cross-examination. Counsel for the defense, begin your questioning of the witnesses, please. Yes, my lord. What just happened? The whole balance of the trial just shifted almost beyond recognition. The Reaper of the Bailey is at work, it would seem. Did you just make something up? So I snuck inside the carriage before they hooked up the horses, just like always.
Hold it!
So you were already in the omnibus before it even set off on its run? Oh yeah, I mean, what's the point of spending a joey to make a few bob? That's a rum idea, isn't it? I suppose she means there's no point spending money to make money. It actually makes sense. What do you mean it doesn't make sense not to spend money to make money? That's how you make money. You have to buy the materials necessary to produce your product. Right? You have to have a facility to hold your business. You have to spend money to make money. As the expression goes, it takes money to make money. Counsel, may I remind you... Of course, she's a thief, so thieves think differently, but... Counsel, may I remind you that this girl is a petty thief. Kindly refrain from entertaining her tenants. Well, that does clear up the little mystery of the fares and all. 4 paying passengers at 5 pence apiece, making the 20 to which the cabman testified. And 1 little scapegrace riding for free. The red conch of a driver always goes for some grub before in last run, see? So that's when I slip into the carriage and get myself right under the seat. Nice and easy, right? But your hiding place is a storage compartment, full of equipment for the coach, no? Yeah, there's brushes and buckets and whatnot in there, sure. I always chunk all that out and cram it in a corner somewhere. No one ever seems to bother much. And yet, according to the report filed by the police officer who first arrived at the scene, the compartment was full of such paraphernalia. Well, I don't know nothing about that. Like I said, I moved all that stuff out so I could hide under the seat. That's all I can tell you. Seems we've reached the end of that line of inquiry. Continue. But it was a right old waste of time. I got nothing to show for my troubles that night.
Hold it!
A waste of time? Why is that? Well, most nights I'm on my own in the God permit. Whoa. At least some of the time. I beg your pardon? Did you say God permit? Oh yeah, well, that's what my kind call it. You'd say the omnibus, I suppose. The point is, any normal run, the carriage ain't got no one in it for a while. And that's when you come out of your hiding place and get away. That's it. Only that night, this cove was sat on the seat from the start. And it didn't budge the whole way, did it? Not 1 inch. I was totally stuck. Do you mean to tell us that you were present in the carriage for the duration? You were under the seat the entire time while events unfolded in the enclosed cabin? Yeah. Right, mister. To be sure, I was as shocked as anyone. Yeah, you don't expect to lift the cushion you've been sat on to find a child now, do you? So this Miss Lestrade couldn't possibly be the culprit then. I tell you can't see a blind thing in that hiding place. It's pitch in there. Oh, I forgot to press that.
Hold it!
So you couldn't see out into the cabin at all? Not a jot. Most days I push the cushion up with me and look out the crack. Then I can have a butcher's at who I'm gonna fiddle. I thought you were a pickpocket, not a butcher. I mean, I can have a look. The seat I get under ain't as plush as the other one, see? This is some sort of rhyme slang thing. It's like climbing the apples. So most of the time, the passengers plant themselves opposite. Like it would be, what would rhyme with look? Cook? Butcher's block doesn't really rhyme with look, unless you said look. Butcher's block. And then you just kind of got abbreviated to butchers. Anyway. For some reason that night, this Irishman spent the whole journey right over my head. And for that reason, you weren't able to push the cushion up to peek out, I see. Truth is, I ain't too happy in small dark places, feeling too much like being thrown in the clink. But it's the only place to hide in them carriages, so it's Hobson's choice. Why doesn't she just stick to picking people's pockets in the open then? I'd say there's some reason that she's not letting on, judging from her demeanor. So anyway, I was a bit scared, but I had to just stick it out under there, nothing else for it. Then after a while, I heard this loud bang, nearly jumped out me skin, I did. Okay. When you say a loud bang, do you mean the noise of someone falling on the floor? Could have been, I suppose. I don't remember so well. Point is, it made me jump. And you let out a scream involuntarily? That's right. And then I felt the cushion over me and to get lighter all of a sudden. Presumably when the defendant got up in order to help the victim, yes. Or not. It could equally have been the moment the accused stood up in order to stab his victim, could it not? Well, girl, did you see what happened at that crucial moment? Yeah, I saw it. I pushed up the cushion and had a quick butcher's while I at the chance, didn't I? The Irishman was sitting up the bloke what had fallen on the floor on the seat opposite. That matches Mr. McGilden's account, of course. But then the fellow suddenly turns around and looks right at me. I sunk back down again, but it was too late by then. I should never have risked looking. It's because of that this well found me. He helped me get away, mind.
Hold it!
And when Mr. McGilded discovered you, he pulled you out from your hiding place? I was scared stiff I was. It dragged me out and sat me down on the seat and all. Next to the victim, Mr. Mason? Yeah, the bloke had a knife in his guts. It was still bleeding. Then the carriage lurched a bit and ended up falling onto me. How awful. Most of my hands got covered in blood. It made me feel sick as a dog. Both their hands covered in blood. That must be what the rooftop passenger saw. After that, I believe you talked with Mr. McGilded for a while, is that correct? Asked me some stuff. Wanted to know me name and what I was up to and that. Then I heard something from above, someone screamed. Yes, Mr. First on the roof deck, one would presume. Well, I didn't want no one seeing my face, so I didn't look up. Then the horses were drawn up smartish, and this Irishman says to me, "Get back under the seat. I'll see that you get away later." All 6 members of the jury had decided the defendant was innocent. For one brief shining moment, yes. It's clear that they were all still very unsure. So we could just find some conclusive piece of evidence among this new testimony. I'm sure we can clinch the verdict we want. Yes, I think you're right. And I have this niggling feeling. Something's bothering me. I just can't quite put my finger on it. I guess we're gonna have to do a present. Let me look through the thing. Band. Stabbed once in the abdomen with a knife whilst journeying in an omnibus, died due to an internal hemorrhage resulting from the trauma from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Okay. Doesn't appear to be a whole lot of blood, but I don't know if this is really that good. There's blood on the seat, but... Yeah, the geometry of the situation doesn't make a whole lot of sense. How did the blood get on the seat? I don't know. He's wearing like an apron, but then he's stabbed in the front. Gloves. Because... McGillen sat him up, but they seem to be self-explanatory. Seat, blood on the chair. This English gentlewoman would be dressed in such finery. It would be quite impossible for her to climb up to the roof deck, so she would have to be seated in here. But in a kimono would have the same problem. Women's clothes are very impractical, aren't they? Okay. Yeah, it's quite large. Again, we don't know where the sheath went. Why is there a sheath? Nothing to contradict, I snuck into the carriage before they hooked up the horses.
Hold it!
I already pressed this, but... Huh. So she got nothing to show for her efforts. This is extremely difficult. Okay. Snuck into the carriage before they hooked up the horses. So, I have to go through this super thoroughly. Does autopsy report say have anything to do with that? No, right? Does the telegraph have anything to do with that? No, definitely not. The gloves have anything to do with that? No. The bus itself. I suppose you could sneak into this. I don't see why not. Of course, there should have been stuff in there, but, like, that's what the prosecutor says, but we don't have any evidence of it in our court record, right? I mean... So it says something doesn't seem right here about the compartment being empty. Well, got the knife. Yeah, that's the thing she'll pickpocket, that's the thing. This is such a long shot. Oh my goodness.
Objection!
Nope. That was a mistake. She said there's nothing. She got nothing to show for it. The knife wasn't what you would. Bruce Fairplay. There's not really evidence that Bruce got actually anything stolen from him, though. You don't have any evidence that somebody actually did have something stolen. And the knife, like the sheath on the knife would work, but that wasn't, she didn't have it, that was the evidence instead. Still don't know how the sheath ended up in the evidence when it wasn't with the rest of the knife, but whatever. Can't see from it. Post to the great exhibition that is due to start 6 months from now. There's a lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower, the centerpiece of the whole exposition. Oh, the Crystal Tower. It's under construction already, I believe. People all over London must be fizzing with excitement at the prospect of such a grand event. Does that have to do with anything? Poster of the great exhibition is due. There's a lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower. Thing missing, I see. I don't see any reason why you could see from there. Contradicts with something. Okay, my next best guess here is present the carriage on this.
Objection!
I was representing it on this.
Objection!
What? Why? Damning, you say? As I look at you, Counsel, I see your trembling hand, your pallid expression, your oh, I'm gonna... Huh? Seems to me that is the... okay. Hell. They trick you with... Wait, did I present it on the wrong thing?
Objection!
Okay, nope. The stupid thing about Ace Attorney is that you can save during a trial, so this is when I do this nonsense. If we get wiped out. I guess I'll press all these again until I figure out which one you present on. This sucks.
Hold it!
corner somewhere. Huh.
Hold it! Hold it!
Hmm.
Well, no.
Ah, I didn't notice this.
Excuse me.
Something wrong, Mr. McGilded? I feel like that whole thing, I didn't notice that. That would have been so simple. Okay. I do apologize. Was there something the matter, Counsel? I'm just wondering if Miss Leo Strad's last comment made something occur to you, perhaps. You seem to be thinking something to yourself. Oh, no, 'twas nothing important. I was feeling bad for the poor lass is all. I remember feeling desperate myself as a young lad, shut up in the dark. It was terrifying, so it was. I see, yes, I'm sure we can all sympathize. I'm still scared of the dark now. And I don't know about yourself, but I find that the darkness seems to make everything you hear seem that much louder as well. Yeah? I suppose it does, maybe. Miss Lestrade. Did you hear something that night? Anything? An unusual noise, perhaps? Not really. All I could hear was the Irishman snoring. Bejabbers, there's no need to tell the whole world of me foibles, you little scamp. What a pity. If only Miss Lestrade had heard something, it might have given us a vital new clue. Yes? What should we make of that last statement of hers? My lord, I believe the statement just made by the witness is profoundly important. Profoundly important? But all she said was that she heard nothing. Yes, which is a profoundly important point. I'm almost sure of it. I'm almost sure that I don't understand the inner workings of your Eastern mind, Council. Nevertheless, Miss Gina Lestrade, you will supplement your formal testimony by repeating the last statement, please. What supplement? What are you on about? Don't give me all your fancy talk. I know what you are trying to do. Well, it will work on me. That's right. Insult the judge. Anyway, a good move. Always a good move. I was straining my ears to work out what was going on, but all I could hear was snoring.
Hold it!
So you were straining to hear what was happening the entire time since the moment you hit yourself. Not exactly, no. Sorry? Well, there was no one in the cabin to start with. I couldn't just push the cushion up and have a butcher's to see what was what. I could, okay. But then when I saw the swell getting on, I got me head down so it didn't notice me. Got me head down so he didn't notice me. And Mr. McGill sat on the seat under which you were hiding, correct? Yeah. Would you Adam and Eve it, eh? What a mug. So then, all I could do was listen. Adam and Eve. I'm trying to figure out, could you leave it, huh? What a... Oh, could you believe it, huh? What a... thug. So then all I could do was listen. I was waiting to jump out of there as soon as I heard him leave, see? But would it not likely? Even though we stopped her in there, I never heard the door open. What? So I just put on a listen and I'm driving pigs. So I just add to stay put and listen and I'm driving his pigs to market, snoring like an old dog he was. Are there any conclusions we can draw from that, I wonder? Yes, it doesn't add up. Miss Lestrade, what have you just told the court? It's clearly at odds with the facts. Huh? At odds? Are you sure, man? Absolutely. It seems my learned friend is not as dull-witted as I feared. So Van Zykes realized it too. Counsel, I must insist that you bolster your claim with evidence or some complicit party's name at the very least. My lord, I expect you to demonstrate your alleged contradiction to the court. According to Miss Lestrade, whilst she was hiding in the omnibus that night, she heard nothing but the sound of Mr. McGillis snoring. But Thigpen as Suke think. There's someone else she should have heard. And that person... Very well, my lord. Allow me to elaborate on a particular sound that Miss Leota should not have failed to hear on the night in question. And that should be the victim.
Take that!
Thrice-fired Mason? Yes, my lord. The sound that Miss Lestrade cannot have failed to hear. It was that of the victim, Mr. Mason, boarding the omnibus. Hold on, explain your reasoning, counsel. Miss Lestrade, allow me to confirm something. You claimed earlier that you were the first person to board the omnibus, is that correct? Yeah, of course I was. I got in while the driver was in the pub, didn't I? And the next person to board the omnibus was Mr. McGilded. It was. Yes, that it was. Not a soul was in the cabin when I climbed aboard. At least not in plain sight. So you were all intents and purposes alone in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus at that time. Did I not say as much? I wasn't traveling with anyone else, if that's what you mean. Yeah, I saw him get on, remember? Through the crack under the seat cushion. It was his own, for sure. And from what we've heard, the carriage made a number of stops after on its onward journey. During which time, did you not hear the door opening or closing at all? Nah, I never heard it. That's exactly what I was listening for, weren't I? Waiting for this swell to leave. In which case, when and how did the victim end up in the carriage? Ah! We know that the victim collapsed inside the enclosed cabin of the omnibus. Therefore, Miss Lestrade's statement about what she did or did not hear is at odds with the facts. Ah. Yes, this petty thief's statement was clearly flawed. Lord Von Zykes. Yes. He knows. He knew all too well that there was an inconsistency in Miss Lestrade's statement. Hehehehe. It would seem words of thanks are in order for my learned friend. What are you talking about? You have demonstrated matters impeccably. This witness and her colorful statements are entirely unreliable. Her words are convenient untruths, nothing more. Judge the dear little mite just because she was some rather naughty ways. But I must say, I can't abide liars. Neither can I. Mr. Foreman, I didn't want to judge the girl just because she has some less than salubrious ways. But I must say, I cannot abide liars. These guys are very, like, simple. Mr. Naruhodo, that's 5 jury members leaning towards guilty. Well, your consideration for others is refreshing, my friend. To the considerable troubles you have spared me. Yes, very refreshing. At least he doesn't have as many chalices as, somebody had coffee cups. How are you playing at? Have you forgotten who you're working for, you useless Eastern Amadin? This is carnage. It's perfect. Juror number 2 is the only one left. Mr. Naruhodo, the way this is going, I know. If we can't find some new way to convince everyone of Mr. McGillard's innocence, the judge will rule, and we'll have lost. I very much wanted to believe the words of one of London's most respected gentlemen, but those of us in service know we must accept hard truths.
Hold it!
Yes, the witness's last statement seems to have revealed a critical inconsistency in her story. However, if we consider the possibility that her statement is in fact the truth, it may shed an entirely new light on this whole case. What are you saying? Counsel? I'm sorry, sir. Whatever do you mean? Counsel, I will not tolerate you attempting to prorogue my adjudication. Explain yourself at once. Actually, that's my job. When the accused boarded the omnibus on the night in question, the victim was nowhere to be seen. Subsequently, the carriage door was not heard opening a single time, as testified by the witness in the stand. And yet the victim's body was found inside the carriage. If this petty thief's words are to be believed, how would you explain the victim's miraculous appearance inside the cabin of the omnibus? There's only one way to explain how the victim came to be inside the carriage. Okay, he was in there already. There's another entrance. He was put there after he died. Oh dear. This is so... It's so weak sauce to save the game. It's just so weak sauce. Makes me not want to do it. What's important here is what happened to the cleaning supplies in the box. There isn't a handle on the other cushion. Yeah, there's no place for him to be in there already. There's another entrance. He just dropped in. Well, we confirmed by examining the carriage that the skylight did not seem to open. He was put in there after he died. Well, if we examine the carriage... It's quite a large skylight, isn't it? Yes, quite large enough, okay. There doesn't appear to be a handle or catch or any description, so I suppose it can't be opened from inside the cabin at least. Okay. So it can't be opened. Interesting. Okay, there's only one door. Can't get to the bottom of the carriage. Okay, so examining this, it appears there was not actually a different entrance. Right, so... I can rule out there's another entrance. I think this one here is the wrong answer. Because examining the omnibus, we don't see a way to get in the skylight. He was in there already. In order to be put in there after he died, though, there had to have been an entrance. And the door would have had to have opened. I'm gonna be a wimp. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to wimp out. I'm going to wimp out on this. Sorry, I wimped. Okay. Let's try to get it right on my first try, though. Ah, which one? It's another place to hide. This makes the most sense. But if he put it in there after he died, that doesn't solve the problem, because how was he put in there? This is the...
Objection!
Oh, I guess this is the route forward. By beforehand, to what specific point in time are you referring? Well, clearly, you shall have a penalized defense for this irrelevant rambling. Okay, I don't really care to see what the great game over thing is. Phooey. I failed. Such a failure. That's because I wasted all that health on the, on that thing where you're supposed to do, like, a slide over. And I thought it was a present. They couldn't figure out what to present.
Objection!
Nope. There's another entrance? The answer is there's another entrance. What? How is that the answer? Fine, I'll pick the one that I ruled out at first. If the door wasn't opened even once, the only explanation is that the victim entered the closed cabin some other way.
Objection!
I wonder what new fantasy you would come up with in your blind panic. But behold, the Omnibus is here for all to see. Only one side of the enclosed cabin is furnished with a door, the other is only windows. Fixed windows which cannot possibly open. In short, there is no entrance to the cabin other than the door. There could be. There's one possibility you haven't considered. Oh, really? Yes, one other way inside that isn't the door. Another opening, the use of which allow the victim to appear inside the enclosed cabin. Alright, counsel. The defense will identify location to the court. Okay. So, at least it can't be opened from the inside, at least. And I expected it from the outside and said, oh, okay, well, it can't be... They didn't say anything about it. It can't be opened from the outside. What a distraction. Listen, just, you have to take that super literally. Oh, dear.
Take that!
The answer is obvious. It could have been the skylight. I say the skylight.
Objection!
Your ludicrous proposal almost has me lost for words. However,
Objection!
the skylight may well be large enough for someone to pass through.
Objection!
So you claim. But have you have a shred of evidence to support your addle-brain theory? Both Mr. McGilded and Miss Lestrade said the same in their testimonies. They each claimed to have heard a loud thud, such as the noise made by someone falling to the floor. Yes, which have already been explained, as the sound of the victim falling from his seat, having been assaulted from the dagger. Well, we wouldn't fall from your seat if you were hit with a dagger. Yes, it has, but when a man slipping from a seat onto the floor really have made such a loud noise as the witness described, a noise loud enough to cause Miss Lestrade to let out an involuntary cry, in fact. Good gracious. Perhaps, in fact, that was the moment that the victim made his entrance into the cabin. Now let me rephrase that. The victim didn't enter the cabin as such. He fell into it.
Objection!
You're now suggesting that the victim fell from the skylight into the cabin. That's simply impossible. How can you be so sure? Because if the victim had fallen inside through the skylight, as you say, the passengers on the roof deck would have seen it happen. And yet, not one person made mention of such events in their testimony. Well, yes, that's true, but... Might a humble fella make a wee comment here? Mr. McGilded. To be sure now, the two fellas who were sat on the roof that testified afore said nothing of the victim followed through the skylight. But it seems to me, my lord, that it is not much of a case to them not saying, but... Aye. 'Tis a case of them being unable to say. What? I think perhaps the two fellas do be having something of a compelling reason not to mention what happened. Would yous not agree, fine ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Humph. Oh my goodness, surely not. Those two chaps on the roof. You mean the ones who stuck that knife in the man were... Ah. Just what exactly are you insinuating here, you bletherer? You rotter, you said. You rotter. What are you insinuating? This is a flaming outrage. I've a good mind to give you a blinker in a minute. I'll give you a shiner in a minute, he said, and so will I. Mr. Fairplay, you're effectively accusing me, a silly, shitty gentleman and a well-respected banker. And me, a very angry hatter. Suggesting that someone like me could have stabbed that man in the guts. It's a disgrace, it's scandalous, and ardent. I protest in the strongest possible terms. That's right, I protest too about you rotten scoundrel. Order, this is not the time, witness. I will not permit this wanton invasion of the stand. Return to the anteroom at once. This is beyond reason, my lord. It's outrageous. It's very hurtful, you know. My lord, if I may comment... Go ahead, Lord Von Zeeks. It was the defense that incited this outburst from the witnesses. My learned friend has seen fit to abandon all protocol and accuse the witness without proof. Accuse? I never intended to. It seems, young nip, that your command... I just gotta read these as they come. That your command of the English tongue is wanting. You proposed to this court that the victim fell through the skylight from the roof deck of the omnibus. The hypothesis cannot possibly stand without the rooftop passengers being aware of the events. You have branded these gentlemen liars, and you have intimidated their criminal... intimated their criminal guilt. In our British courts of law, that is what is termed as a baseless accusation. I know, I was rash to put this idea forward without any actual evidence, but... you can't just dismiss it without a second thought. What are you wasting time for? Get them to testify. I thought there was something fishy about that hat from the moment I laid my eyes on that fellow. We have to see this matter through now, one way or another. If these filth and rubbish in our midst, if there's filth and rubbish in our midst, we must dispose of it at once. Oh dear, it's like crucify him. What's happening, Mr. Naruhodo? The spectators in the public gallery they're in complete frenzy. Mr. Fairplay and Mr. First. My lord. You will take the stand again and make another formal testimony in reference to the indictment brought by the defense. Yes, my lord. I didn't come here for this. There's no time to think this through. All I can do is keep pushing forward. Refuting the accusations. We were the only two people on that roof deck, dead or alive. I can answer to that. If anything had happened where we were sitting, don't you think one of the other of us would have noticed? In any case, neither of us know the first thing about the victim. We had no reason to kill the man. The skylight was shut the entire time, I tell you. We couldn't have possibly have opened it. If you're not sure the victim fell through the skylight, where's your proof? I must say that on listening to this testimony, it is somewhat hard to imagine how either witnesses could have performed any malevolent act on this open rooftop deck, without the other noticing forthwith. That's right, you see. We're innocent, I tell you. Another logically, of course, the argument falls down if the two of you were in collusion with one another. But, according to investigations by Scotland Yard, the two witnesses share no common dealings. Ah, well, I don't trust coppers any more than I trust the stinking rich. Something's going, it doesn't feel right here. The trial is going in our favor, really. So why do I feel so uneasy? Counsel for the defense, over to you. Your cross-examination, please. Oh, yes, my lord. Shooting the accusation. We were the only two people up on that roof deck, dead or alive. I can answer to that. Okay. So at no time did the victim, Mr. Mason, climb up to join you on the roof deck. Absolutely not, Dickin. Question about it, he said. None at all. Oh, but yes, of course. I remember seeing them both. I saw the victim inside the enclosed cabin talking with this man here. Talking? Is this true, Mr. McGilded? Dear me, my lord, at the risk of repeating myself, I boarded the omnibus alone and nodded off in sight almost immediately. It's an outrageous lie. Without doubt you were engaged in... Let me stop you there, fella, and ask. Do you have any evidence at all? Ah. 'Tis all about evidence in the courts these days, so it is. You do well to remember that. Ah, I saw you with my own eyes. This is going so well. If anything had happened where we were sitting, don't you think one or the other of us would have noticed?
Hold it!
Well, it was on the final run of the omnibus at past 10 o'clock in the evening. I would certainly have been quite dark, perhaps too dark to see clearly. That's ridiculous, though. Is this some kind of lark? Is this some kind of joke, he said? Is that what this is? Or perhaps one or the other of you fell asleep briefly. Are you fair dinkum, sir? Are you serious, sir? That's what he said. It's impossible, I tell you. I give you the keys to the vault if you could fall asleep in that bitter cold. And if you did manage it, your eyelids would freeze shut and you'd never open them again. That's extreme. It was extreme, I tell you, and we had to put up with it because this man had locked the door. And any true gent would have unlocked it and let me in when I knocked. I'm dreadfully sorry about that, young fella. But you see, I was away when the fairies, and I didn't hear you at all. That's a lie. I saw you through the glass. You were talking to someone. Now, 'twas a cold night, so it was. People do be seeing things that aren't real in the cold. Just hardly surprising. Seeing things. I believe we have reached an impasse here on this particular point. Don't take it personally now, lad. But I'm a suspect in a... if I'm a suspect in a case, then it's only fair that you and the others are too. Open and free competition is what a capitalist society is all about. This isn't the competition I would like to be involved in, really.
Hold it!
So, you'd had never met Mr. Thrice-Fired Mason before? Oh, Lumo, no, not once, never. Never met the man before, he said, never. And you, Mr. First, had no prior dealings with the victim either? That's right, sir. Matters don't have much to do with brickmakers. To be perfectly honest, sir. No, I imagine not. You see, how many different ways can I put this? Neither of us have the remotest connection to the gentlemen who were inside the cabin.
Excuse me.
Mr. McGilded. Yes, counsel, what can I be doing for you? Did you witness the last statement given? Did the witness's last statement give you pause for thought somehow? Not the remotest connection. Is that right now, I wonder? What are you insinuating now? Mr. Fairplay, 'twas been too long, so it has. If I'm not very much mistaken, I believe 'tis fast approaching, is it not, your repayment date? I beg your pardon? You borrowed 20 guineas from me, sir. At an unconscionable rate of interest, you tricked me. It is extortion. Well now, was that a touch of begrudgery, is it? The sort of begrudgery that might motivate a fellow to pass his crimes off on another. And young Mr. First. Me, sir, what do you want from me, sir? Do you be making hats for a living, do you not? That were top hat sliding around your head, is that one of your own creations, is it? Well, I'm still an apprentice, you understand. I'm learning to find the perfect fit for whatever fine gent walks through the door. Perfect fit, is it? Well, it's a very distinctive design, so it is. Many customers like it, I tell you. They like a distinctive touch. Customers. Such as thrice-fired Mason. There was a photographic print of the victim submitted as evidence before, my lord. Oh, yeah, this you mean. Can't help thinking that poor fellow's hat looks distinctively familiar, wouldn't you say? Oh. That's one of my hats. That it is. So it seemed the brickmaker was a customer of yours. The sort of customer, I'd wager, you've had a wee quarrel with over the distinctiveness of the goods. Oh no, sir, absolutely not, sir. Well, there's really nothing more to add. It wouldn't be right to say that the two fellows here, the remotest connection to the victim, you see, haven't the remotest connection to the victim, you see. I rest my case. Little weasel. Aye. He's better at this than I am. Gosh, Mr. McGillet has certainly been thorough in his research, hasn't he? Please, don't let me, little interruption, hold up the proceedings.
Hold it!
Are you quite certain about that? The skylight was shut the entire time. I'm going to lose my block with you in a minute. He's going to lose his rag with you in a minute, that's what he said. Take a look at you for yourself, go on. As you can see, it's shut fast now, just like it was on that night. So it is, of course. A fellow the size of Mr. Mason could likely break right through it, still in all... What? Just looking at the size of the thing, you understand. How do you hold on there a minute, sir? The size of the thing means nothing. Not on its own. Let's consider the bigger picture here, shall we? Let's stop biting our cane, shall we? I was riding the omnibus on another occasion when, well, it broke wind loudly. I shocked myself with it as it happens. This is an unexpected confession, Mr. First. Oh, I just mean to say, well, the point is, I tried to open the skylight, you see. But just my luck, I couldn't make it budge. The stench was terrible. Everyone was looking daggers at me, sir. I went as red as rogue I did. Are you expecting me to sentence you? No, sir. The point is, the skylight can't be opened. I tried and tried when I was inside the cabin of shame.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say about that, Miss Litrad? Miss Litrad? It opens. The skylight. That is what we're talking about, right? All them skylights open dead easy. More easily than you can load that weapon. It's a lie, I tell you, otherwise when I broke wind, You can't do it from inside, you mug. Oh. Look, a few weeks ago, I was up on the roof deck of one of them drags. And at a great haul, I mean, I had purses coming out me ears. Miss Letray, this is not the forum to be indulged in the subject of your criminal activities. Eulogizing on the subject of your criminal activities. Well, anyway, I had a bit of a scare. When I lifted the last bloke's purse, he got wise of me. All four of them surrounded me, so I couldn't hop off the bus and leg it. So what I did was I used the skylight, opened the hatch, and jumped right through. What? Yeah, the catch for them skylights is on the top side. That's why you can't open them from the cabin. The skylight opens from the roof deck. Bailiff! Climb up on top of the roof down with us at once and verify this witness's claims. Finally we get to this after it tricked me up. Like half an hour ago. My hat. See? Order! So it appears that the street girl's statement is quite true. I don't believe it. The skylight opens. And from the roof deck. Mr. Naruhodo. This could be the clue we've been looking for. Well, counsel for the defense. Please continue with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. So the skylight opens. Perhaps I should investigate for myself. You're so sure the victim fell through the skylight, where's your proof?
Hold it!
Proof. That's right, I demand to hear it. We came here to say what we saw, I tell you, not for this. But you call us both shizers, brand us as criminals. You call us slayers, that's what he means, and accuse us of doing it. As it stands at the moment, there's no hard evidence that incriminates you yourselves now, is there? I believe we're in much the same position as one another here. Ah. I don't crack this case soon, he'll crack his teeth. Skylight was fastened shut before, but now the catch has been undone. We should be able to open it. You can certainly see inside the carriage through this opening, that's for sure. Yes, and there's a lamp in the enclosed cabin. Sure, the witnesses could have been able to see quite clearly. You don't have any evidence that there's a third person on the roof deck yet. You don't have any evidence they're working together conclusively yet. Okay, then this is where you present the skylight, which is basically just this guy.
Objection!
What? How is that not correct?
Objection!
Too many animations.
Objection! Take that! Objection! 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 Objection!
Animations. That's why I don't like 3D sprites. Part of the reason.
Hold it!
Wait, that ain't...
Excuse me!
Someone like me. Ah, what is it? Look, just there. Look at this. It's without question. It's blood. Why would there be blood stain there? Surely, it can't be unrelated to the case, can it?
Objection!
At the night in question, the victim was fatally stabbed in the stomach, and immediately afterwards, the victim's body was pushed through the skylight into the cabin below. Those are the facts, and the irrefutable proof? remains clearly visible in the omnibus that stands before us today in this very courtroom. What? That's utter humbug. Ugh, you can't possibly have any evidence. No, that can't be. I mean, we didn't do it, I tell you. It's impossible. Irrefutable proof here in this courtroom. Counsel? My lord. I believe everyone would appreciate a little clarification here, Where exactly within the omnibus is this evidence to which you allude? Oh, this doesn't let me double through. Oh, great. Okay, well. Forget, like, the difference between the keys for examine and present. You present with R, you examine with either enter or space. Okay, I want to hit R.
Got it!
By Jupiter! Is that blood? This blood stain proves two things. Firstly, that when the incident occurred, the skylight of the omnibus was open. What? And secondly, the victim was already bleeding when he fell through the opening. And so it follows that Mr. McGilded, who was inside the enclosed cabin himself at the time, cannot possibly be guilty of this crime. Oh no!
Hold it!
But the blood could have sprayed up there when the fellow was stabbed inside the cabin, a very specific spray. And only found its way to that one particular spot on the skylight. Sure, and that would be very convenient. Ah. And let's keep it in mind that the skylight catch can only be unfastened from the roof decks. I myself wouldn't have been able to open it now, would I? But there's no way to know for certain, is there? If the tent really fell through the skylight, I mean. Why don't you have a good look at the floor of the cabin between the two seats, Mr. First? 'Tis all too plain, if you see. There's the aftermath that shows the poor fellow dropped from a fair height right there, so it is. What? No. But it can't be. It's all lies! My fellow jury members, I think we can all agree that this is a clear proof of the defendant's innocence, can't we? I believe we can, yes sir. It's clear to me now where the filthy rubbish can be found in this courtroom. So, they thought they could pull the wool over my eyes, did they? I don't tolerate any of the guild's characters being sullied with blood. I can't tolerate it. Oh, I always knew that nice gentleman who gave us that delightful park couldn't have done such a thing. Three, then everyone. 1, 2, 3.
Objection!
Of course he would. Chilling performance, Mr. McGilded. Oh, and what would we referring to do there, Lord Vine's? The blood stain on the frame of the skylight. Such evidence. Is null and void. What? Why? For one extremely simple reason. That smear of blood never existed.
Objection!
What are you talking about? It's there for all to see, and it's clearly blood.
Objection!
I personally attended Scotland Yard's investigation of the omnibus. The officers involved went over the carriage with a fine-tooth comb. So I can state with absolutely surety, no such smear of blood existed on the carriage. At least, not until this trial began. But, are you suggesting, Lord Von Zykes, the stain of blood was fabricated, my lord? Yes. And while this court has been in session, Hehe, what a palaver. I must say I didn't expect such crude reasoning from a prosecutor your standing, Lord Von Zykes.
But I'm Magnus McGilded, a fellow known all over the capital for his fine contributions to public life. I don't take kindly to slander, and I'll fight it to the bitter end. Even if it's rolling off the tongue of the Reaper of the Bailey. Mr. McGilded, I realize that this is your first appearance in this court as the accused. However, I am well aware of your involvement behind the scenes in a great many affairs of dubious nature. You're very adept when it comes to avoiding getting your own hands dirty. And each time it happens, that a case you're involved in is investigated, you adapt the facts. Adapt the facts? What does that even mean? When you wield a fortune the size of Mr. McGilded's, however ill-gotten it may be, nothing is impossible. Tampering with evidence, manipulating the scene of a crime, bribing witnesses. I toast your ability to concoct the most convenient of stories, sir. Tut tut, Lord Van Zykes. This will not do, to be sure. Will it now, counsel? Oh, no. I think it's fair to say, this does all sound like a rather far-fetched excuse by a desperate man. The blood on the skylight didn't exist, you say. But if yous will all cast your minds back, is it not true that the omnibus there has been in the courtroom the entire time? How could anyone possibly put a smear of blood in it without the world of his wife seeing? He's gonna say it's when the smoke bomb went off. Isn't that right now, counsel? It's true. Dennis has been in full view the entire time that the court has been in session. My learned friend. Here's to hearing your opinion on this matter, in your own words. What you wish. It would have been possible. As a defense lawyer, it's my job to advocate for the defendant as best as I can. But still, I feel as though there's something even more important at stake here. There is no evidence to suggest that the defendant did as my learned friend suggests. However, in terms of having the opportunity to carry out the alleged tampering, there is one possibility. Oh. Good gracious. Explain yourself, counsel. Yes, there is. It seems my learned friend has no intention of running from this deceit. Deceit? I'm sure everyone still remembers clearly the recess that we were forced to take as a result of the smoke grenade fired by the witness currently in the stand, Miss Gina Lestrade. The courtroom was filled with smoke, and everyone was thrown into confusion. All of us were made to leave this chamber. In that brief interval, under the veil of smoke and in all the chaos, it could have been possible to steal inside the omnibus. Are you wise? What are you trying to pull, you rotten feckless gouger? Feckless? Gouger? You're supposed to be defending me. 'Tis a wicked plot. 'Tis a plot to undermine me, so it is.
Objection!
Whatever you think this is, it changes nothing. The facts are the same. After this courtroom was evacuated earlier as a result of the smoke grenade, a number of inconsistencies materialized in relation to the omnibus. Inconsistencies such as, to start with, the storage compartment underneath the rear passenger seat. Police investigated the omnibus. This compartment was full of driver's items. Secondly, we have the smear of blood on the edge of the skylight. As I have said, that was not present at the start of the trial this morning. Fortunately, Lord Van Zykes, no one is able to corroborate your claims. That's true. When the omnibus was first wheeled out, Both the storage compartment and the skylight were shut. Accordingly, I'm afraid to say, we cannot establish with any certainty is this evidence is the result of tampering or not. Indeed, my lord, no doubt there was not a single person who saw fit to verify such things. What do you think? Sorry? About the omnibus. Is there anything else unusual about the omnibus? Lord, yes, counsel. There is one further inconsistency. A mark that surely could not have been present at the start of the trial. What? What in the devil's name are you going to say now? If you dare to betray me, you little maggot, you better start watching your back.
Objection.
Silence, McGilded. The court awaits the defense's clarification. There. This trial keeps swinging one way and then the other. I have no idea what the truth and what's deception. What am I supposed to believe here? I shall have to ask you to elaborate, counsel. How exactly is this alleged mark that you claim appeared at some point during the trial? It has to be on the inside? I committed to this, I can't back out. Apparently it's not inside there. So let me look at my list. Poster. There's nothing important about the poster. Poster, nothing, no reason to believe that it wasn't there. Wait. So nothing about that having to do with dates or anything, where it's like it couldn't have been there before the murder happened or something, because it was talks about a date or something like that. Okay. So the poster, you have the other poster, you have the blood stain, you have this blood stain, and we have that blood stain. It says Mark, though.
Bloodstain. Handle seat. So hard. This has to be inside the omnibus? Yeah, I can't select the door. I can't go out. I'll examine this. Ooh. Okay, so it's this then.
Got it!
If you consider that the victim fell through the skylight onto the floor of the cabin, you would certainly expect to find signs of blood where he landed. But as far as I recall, this bloodstain on the cabin floor was not there when the omnibus was first brought into the courtroom. Good lord. Yes, I do believe you're correct, counsel. Well said. Although, as advocate for the defense, one might say that it was a very careless slip of the tongue. I believe that bloodstain on the floor is a decisive piece of evidence. But if the question is whether that evidence is genuine, or whether it was unlawfully fabricated by someone, I feel compelled to admit that there's at least a possibility that the evidence is fake. This trial is over. Mr. McGilded, I've done everything I possibly can to cooperate with the court, but it is all over now. But you're the defendant. It is over, I tell ya. Memory, recollection, what people think they saw. 'Tis all nonsense. Facts are what counts, and the fact is that bloodstain is there now. Oh, well. And over the course of this desperate trial, long and extremely drawn out as it has been, that good-for-nothing Reaper of the Bailey has failed to present any decisive evidence at all. I'm scandalized, so I am. I thought better of Lord Van Zlyck's. Well, my lord, I must concur with the defendant. The unaffirmed recollections of the individual cannot extend as evidence. At this moment in time, the particular bloodstain in question is very much in existence, and in the absence of any credible method by which to prove its alleged previous non-existence, I regret to say it would be improper for this trial to continue. Your lordship can't be serious. Lord Van Zykes, what is your position? Prosecution, my lord, has no further witnesses or evidence to present. Very well. In that case, as I believe we have explored every possible avenue in this matter, I shall proceed to my adjudication. As a formality, I am of course obliged to confirm with the defense first. What formality? All as things stand at the moment, it would seem that Mr. McGilded will be found not guilty. Yes, which would mean we've won. Is that really the right outcome here? Is it really alright for the trial to come to an end now with all these unexplained inconsistencies? Counsel for the defense, your closing statement, please. Yes, my lord. The defense believes I am here in this courtroom today to advocate for the defense of my client, Mr. McGilded. However, at this moment in time, I cannot, in all good conscience, attest fully to the defendant's innocence. What are you saying, man? Without any question, there is no conclusive evidence to prove that the defendant is guilty. However, there is also no conclusive evidence to prove that he is innocent. Good. Good gracious to me. This is an unprecedented behavior, counsel. A defense lawyer calling the accused innocent until into question. Are you of sound mind? Ha ha ha. It was a grand decision to appoint you as my lawyer, so it was a grand decision. But I must say, I didn't expect quite such an exciting spectacle at the end there, but still. Here, have this for your troubles. Your job here is done, fella, and some fine work we've done, so we have. What do you mean? 'Tis good as a right honorable gentleman to succinctly put it afore, the trial can't go on anymore. Basically saying you're fired. And your closing statement there was, how did he put it now? Nothing more than a formality. I really don't know what to make of all this. Was the evidence we've seen genuine, or was it fake? His lordship would be fuming. Any unsightly rubbish should be disposed of properly, as I said. Stinking rich are always guilty of something. You are, mark my words. I feel terribly ashamed that I ever doubted that level man who gave us the level park. Now what proceedings have unfolded in this way? Now that I am compelled to declare a premature end to the... compelled to declare a premature end to this trial. Furthermore, the court must accept the defendant's plea. I thank you kindly, my lord. I hereby pronounce the verdict of this court. We still haven't determined if the bloodstain in the omnibus is genuine or not. We don't know if these witnesses are telling the truth or the pack of lies. We have no idea about the truth. Lord Van Zykes, my lord, the case made by the prosecution was flawed, plain and simple. If indeed the omnibus presented as evidence was tampered with, the prosecution is at fault for allowing such disgraceful perversion of justice to take place. My sincere apologies, my lord. Wait. When we were evacuated from the courtroom, Lord Van Zykes ordered the evidence to be secured. I'm afraid the prosecution cannot shun responsibility in this matter. That's so unfair. The culpability of the defendant was not, at the present time, been established by this court. Consequently, the jury will not be required to proffer judgment. What? Van Zykes, it's been a pleasure, so it has. And as for you, my dear fella, I couldn't have asked for a better defense. Mean to tell me this has all been a grand waste of time? 'Tis the law of the land, my good man. If you'd like to pursue this matter further, you can always go ahead and try to change the law. Magnus McGilded. Good grief, you've more to say to me, have you? Just one thing, a warning. This is far from over. Well, something to be looking forward to then. That's why Van Zykes came back. I hereby pronounce the defendant Mr. Magnus McGilded. I get fireworks for that? That stupid conviction? That stupid verdict? You can't just tamper with the evidence and then get away with it. The courtroom in pandemonium for the second time that day, the judge delivered his verdict, and my first ever trial in Great Britain came to an abrupt end, with the defendant being found not guilty, ostensibly a victory for us. Just because of court procedure, if the prosecution tampers, allows for evidence tampering, you'll automatically get a not guilty. That certainly was a long trial. Ah, yes, it was. Your first ever trial on foreign soil and your first victory. It was a wonderful performance. A heartfelt congratulations. And to you, Miss Susato, thank you for your assistance. I suppose we should be happy. The trouble is, we're still completely in the dark about what actually happened. Well, we didn't have enough time. But isn't it wrong? I mean, who was actually responsible for Mr. Mason's death? We don't even know that. The sole aim of the defense is to obtain a verdict that exonerates the defendant. You carried out your duty to perfection. That you did. Mr. McGilded. Ah, and that girl with him, too. Well, it seems the stories are true. Oh, what stories? About the 6 enormous fireworks they do to be letting off when there's a verdict of not guilty. I'm sure you must have seen them now. Spectacular, wouldn't you say? Yes, definitely. I heard it was a sight to behold, and to be sure it was. And if you'd think, I suppose, for having an opportunity to see it. Oh, I don't know about that. I'm not sure I really did anything. What on earth are you saying, fella? How did I walk out of there a free man, then? I don't think it was so much thanks to me as down to your planning. You're a straight-talking fellow, aren't you? I must say, you had me astray in the head there once or twice. But you're young and headstrong, and 'tis water under the bridge. Congratulations, Mr. McGilded, on having your name cleared. But nothing's resolved. There's one thing that matters to me. We've all seen that I didn't do that odious and abstinent deed. 'Tis grand, is it not? I suppose it is. Now the fine fellows at Scotland Yard can make matters in hand and sort out any wee details. They'll see it for what it is. They'll get to the truth. I've absolutely faith in them, so I have. After all, I do be providing a good number of their wages with all the taxes I pay. It's not that funny. So then, as we agreed beforehand, 1,000 Guinness for your troubles, fellas. Oh, no, I couldn't possibly accept that much. Oh, be whilst, you're a humble people, are ya? You from the east? Well, if you insist. But have this. Still in all, you deserve a reward. Unlike Phoenix, who never gets paid. Mr. Magnus McGilded. Everything is ready, sir. If you'd like to follow me into the courtroom. Into the courtroom? What's this, officer? 'Tis sooner than I was led to believe. I hope it's not inconvenient, sir. There were some changes to the schedule. Well, I must be making tracks now. 'Tis time for the inspection. Sorry, what inspection? They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. I'm asked if I could be present for it myself. They're going to examine it again? Now? Naturally, I'm under no obligation to take part in any more of this matter now. But as an upstanding member of London society, I do but doing my best to help where I can. 'Tis a gentleman's duty, so it is.
So then, farewell, fare thee well. 'Twas an absolute pleasure to meet yous. Hope you have a whale of a time while you're studying here in Great Britain. And there he goes, a free man. Oh, I forgot she was here too. Don't move. Whereas I went to say, get a move on, she really does take forever to load that thing. Miss Lestrade, would you mind putting that thing down? You're a grown-up. Sorry. And I hate all grown-ups. Oh, there you are. Naughty, naughty, running off like that. It's some kind of picnic. Who's this little girl now? And taking that with you as well? I was looking forward to that trial run of my experimental smoke grenade launcher. Ah. Are these all friends of Herlock Sholmes? Oh, you want to play? You won't beat me. Grr. Excuse me, but who are you? Oh, good day to you. I am, well, the inventor, I suppose, of that machine. The inventor? Well, normal smoke grenades are so dull, don't you agree? White, white, and more white. If you have to be shrouded in smoke, it could at least be a pretty color, I thought to myself. Do we have to be shrouded in smoke, though? At all? I just took my eyes off it for a moment whilst I was changing into a different omnibus and she pinched it. Luckily, I fitted it with a telegraphic beacon. A what's it? What? I have no idea what this girl is talking about. Anyway, you're coming with me now, back to my laboratory. What for? To apologize, of course, silly, to my technician. What, you mean, say sorry? You must say sorry when you've done something wrong. Surely an adult has told you that before. An adult? Oomph. I don't listen to no adults. Come along then, follow me. Fine, have it your way. Oh good, you see, I knew you'd want to do the right thing, in the end. I'm fairly sure of what she wants is not to get shot by that massive gun of yours. Well, we'll be leaving now then. Bye-bye. I'm so sorry for all the fuss. She was a lively one. Oh, what do you think? Perhaps we ought to be on our way now too? Yes, you're right, but... where to? Oh, we haven't had time to find a place to stay. No sooner had we arrived in London than we had to rush here. All our traveling cases are still with the bailiff. I was originally planning to spend today in search of lodgings. But at this late hour in the day, I'm afraid we may be out of luck. Don't worry, though, I have a plan. The worst comes to worst, I've heard of a lovely park where we could spend the night. Please tell me you're not thinking of the Gilded Park. I know it may be a little chilly at this time of year, but our usefulness will see us through. I'm not so sure about that. I think a midwinter London night will freeze a young person's soul just as easily as an elderly one. Oh dear, that doesn't sound agreeable. Now it's starting to regret our turning Mr. McGilded down. That 1,000 Guinness would have paid for a lovely warm room, or mansion. And so, the trial to determine my worthiness for the study tour was over by the end of our first day in London. However, as we were soon to learn, there were more trying times ahead, just as the Reaper of the Bailey had warned. The case was far from over. Man, I fail.
What's going on? Get the fire brigade! Water! Bring water, quick! What the... How did this happen?
I don't know, sir. By the time I got here, it was already engulfed.
No one was supposed to be allowed in here before we started investigating. No. Oh, good God. There's something No. This can't be.
The judge was inside? What?